Fire is a wild element that always leads to destruction, but also is the seed of rebirth, change, and passion. And when it comes to Magic the Gathering, no one embodies its many aspects better than Chandra Nalaar. She's one of the founding members of Gatewatch, essentially a main protagonist of the entire franchise, and quite honestly, given how important she is, I don't really know as much about her as I probably should, but today, for us, that's gonna change. So let's see together how her story starts, how the little ember on Avishkar grew to be a mighty Inferno, destroying Eldrazi Titans, nickel Bolas, and even the new Phyrexian invasion. That's gonna be one hot video. The Fire of Youth. Young Chandra was born on the mighty plane of Avishkar, a plane just absolutely chock full of ether, which I should specify is canonically pronounced ether for all you Final Fantasy heads that are going to debate it in the comments. Yes, ether is just like an uber magic substance natural to the space between planes, the blind eternities, and is apparently at least highly flammable. And yes, I think we're gonna address it right now. Historically, the plane has not always been Avishkar, but since the plane is currently, and for good reason has been changed, I'm just gonna simply refer to it as Avishkar. If you're curious as to when it changed, it was after the War of the Spark arc in canon. Anyhow, back to what actually matters here. Chandra's family life was fairly standard at that point. A strict mother, a very gentle papa, two sisters that she hated, and a big brother that she adored like a hero who was tragically a victim of war. Luckily, Chandra had found fire. Not in a messy arsonist kid type of way, just that she could do it. She was a pyromancer with growing magical talents that came incredibly naturally to her. But as we mentioned in the hook of this video, fire magic was no good due to all the ether in the air, so the governments of Avishkar actually had strictly banned it. And as an unfortunate result, her parents pursued many ends in a kind of desperate attempt to cure Chandra of her gifts. But as you can imagine, this desire to cleanse Chandra led the family to some very sticky situations, as they needed to keep Chandra's gifts under wraps because they'd probably get arrested for fire magic malpractice and maybe also light tax evasion. And as can be expected from a little girl, Chandra didn't exactly like this very much and caused a massive scene with a big fireball and then just skipped and skedaddled into the mountains. And since this wasn't exactly the most discreet performance, the government caught wind of this and did the super illogical thing of just executing the entire village, because surely they were all practicing fire for that massive of an explosion to ever be possible to happen. So in a very morbid twist of fate, the consulate, the governing body of Avishkar, placed the villagers into the burning huts where they were then burned to death for using fire, and Chandra barely returned in time to see her whole family burned to a crisp due to her own actions. Her mother pleaded, fought, and cried out for her daughters, but it was all for naught. They were all burned, and a blade was even raised to just cut down Chandra's mother. Trauma! The final piece of the puzzle for Chandra to, of course, in this event, awaken her powerful planeswalker spark. And so, as the blade was about to slice down her mother, Chandra erupted into a burst of orange and red flames, vanishing to the plane of Regatha. Chandra Nalaar and the Purifying Fire. The section titles are starting to sound like Harry Potter books. Anyways, this is kind of where we actually see the events of the Chandra pseudo-origin novel, which is called The Purifying Fire. In my Gideon video, right here, if you haven't watched it yet, I actually tried to avoid chronicling it as much as possible since, I want you guys to be able to read the lore yourselves and enjoy all the more nuanced moments. But today I do think I kind of have to really dig a lot deeper into it than we do normally, so please use the YouTube chapter system below to skip ahead if you actually just want to read The Purifying Fire yourself. Otherwise, if you want to stay, here we go. After boom, flash fire warping to Regatha, Chandra manages to end up at Carol Keep, a monk monastery built around the teachings of Jaya Balar, which is honestly just the most Chandra-coded philosophy imaginable. Total personal freedom. Do what you want, be who you are, as long as you're not, hurting anyone else. Oh, and did I mention she was also now a sick pyromancing planeswalker? That kind of helps things a lot as well. So, all was dust. All was well until the literal magic police showed up.
Get down on the ground, this is the magic police!
Whew! Turns out the Order of Heliod started getting zesty and tightening their grip on Regatha. Fire magic? Illegal. Summoning creatures to settle disputes? Also illegal, and naturally, Corral Keep, being free-form fire wizards, aren't about all that jazz. And for Chandra, this was yet another home corrupted by the man, the anti-fireman. She actually goes and tries to deal with one of the Order's specters in the forest and ends up accidentally setting a huge portion of it on fire, which, shockingly, doesn't really help her case here. So now, she's got suddenly a bounty on her head, the Order actively hunting her, and probably some past due taxes also. And so Mother Luti, the head of Carol Keep, makes a call. Chandra needs to disappear for her own safety, so she sends her after a scroll that the mind sculptor himself, Jay Spellerin, had previously taken. Now, since the scroll itself is odd and magical, the words on it are sort of just like there. So Chandra planeswalks to Kefalai and immediately makes everything so much more worse. Her attempt to retrieve the scroll fails, and in the chaos, she destroys the Sanctum of Stars, a massive archive of powerful artifacts, killing everyone inside. It's one of the first moments where Chandra's actions have actual real consequences on a truly devastating scale, and there's just honestly no clean way to justify it away. And then, while fleeing, she runs into Stud Muffin of the Year, Daddy Supreme, Gideon Jura, who initially seems like help and then immediately hands her over to Kefalai authorities. Now, Gideon here, if you didn't know, is sort of, almost, kind of sometimes a cop and sometimes a rebel, and the line is very specific and matches whatever best aligns with order and righteousness for him. The white planeswalker versus the red one we're talking about here. This leads to her imprisonment, torture, and eventually a desperate escape that sends her planeswalking blindly to a plane locked in eternal night under the rule of a vampire tyrant, which, funnily enough, will not be the only time Chandra has dealt with eternal nights and vampires, but we'll get there in a little bit. Be patient. Gideon here, hot on her flame trail, makes his way over as well. They become buddies of circumstance so that they can survive Diridan, navigate its broken mana, and eventually overthrow Prince Velrath to restore the plane. But unaware of the drama surrounding the Order of Heliod, Gideon lets it slip that he is now part of that order, which isn't just a local fraction, but a multi-planar force trying to impose peace across all worlds. And yeah, as you can imagine, Fireball Chandra, anti-establishment girl, wasn't like super thrilled at this, but they got some bigger fish to fry right now. They return to Regatha, and things have only gotten much worse here. The Order now has Carol Keep under siege and is demanding Chandra to be surrendered. And in one of the most important character moments here, the monks refuse completely. They would rather die, sacrifice their own lives, than strip Chandra of her freedom. Stand up, monks! I respect it, but Chandra doesn't want more blood on her hands than she already has, especially not those who took her in, so she turns herself into the Order, and what awaits her isn't execution, it's something worse. Walbert, the leader of the Order and definitely a big fan of the band Nirvana, plans to use an artifact called the Purifying Fire, which is a big magical mode of power meant to cleanse a person of their sins. But In reality, it will strip Chandra of her magic entirely, including her spark and subsequently her morals, ethics, and ideals. But before things get too sour, Gideon actually reveals to her that if she enters the fire with a clean soul, she might actually survive with her powers intact. That basically means she can't have any regrets and have secrets unsaid that still plague her, so for the first time ever, Chandra stops running from her past. She admits it out loud that her actions led to her own family's death. That she's been carrying a lot of guilt this entire time. Her actions have had some insane consequences for people, and that's the truth. And as a result, the fire accepts her. Instead of stripping her powers away, it burns away everything unresolved in her, the fear, the denial, the part of her that was still kind of running, and when she steps out, she's not weaker, she's fully locked in. And so she just goes crazy style on it. It being the order and crazy style being, well, absolute annihilation. The order is obliterated. Walbert is burned alive, the caverns they're in starts collapsing under the sheer force of her power, and when it's over, Gideon wakes her up and immediately calls her out. All those deaths, all that destruction, but Chandra doesn't regret it. At least not the way that he wants her to. The man was slain, no more forced obstruction by the governing powers on those that they're supposed to help. Before she then packs her stuff and leaves, she actually tells Gideon a really harsh ideal for a man whose whole shtick is order. The people who destroyed her village back on Avishgar claimed the exact same ideals. Harmony, law, order, and with those really piercing words, she walks away. What's the deal with the Eye of UGIN? After everything on Regatha, Chandra sets her sights on Zendikar, and not because she's looking for a fresh start here, she's chasing something specific. The Eye of UGIN. Now, just to be clear, at this point in the story, she doesn't fully understand what it really is, only that it matters because that scroll she was chasing for Mama Luti is somehow, some way tied to it. And of course, as you know if you watch the channel, Zendikar is not exactly, let's say, beginner friendly. It's a big magical plane where the literal continents roll over on each other, shifting and changing constantly. I guess imagine it kind of like the craziest pot of noodles you've ever seen, just boiling and roiling over each other. Great. Now I want noodles. Her best lead to the Eye of UGIN is a ruin sage named Anawan, someone who actually knows how to navigate the constantly shifting terrain, and after going through multiple guides, a lot of frustration, and a loss of money that may or may not be tax deductible, she finally tracks him down deep in the mountains. And to his credit, he agrees to help her, which lasts right up until the moment he tries to then kill her in her sleep. Drats. Men will be men, I guess. Their fight is messy, and for the first time in a while, Chandra's magic doesn't come through the way that she expects. It falters, leaving her fully exposed at, like, the worst moment possible, and that's when the greatest of all time, father of dragons, absolute beast, Sarkhan Vol arrives in a glorious... Can you tell that a total Sarkhan fanboy helps me write my scripts? Bro, my team member. Anyhow. Yes, Sarkhan Vol enters the scene and shuts the entire situation down, with one clean strike. But then he just immediately turns on Chandra, making it very clear that she's not welcome anywhere near the Eye of UGIN. To him, this place isn't something to explore, it's something to protect. Wonder what that's all about. However, sort of mumbling a bunch of nonsense, Sarkhan deems her powerful enough to serve as a sacrifice for UGIN and leads her to the Eye of UGIN anyways. Arriving inside of the Hedron-filled cavern, Sarkhan reveals a sacrifice is required to unlock its power, and shockingly, and you would have never believed this, Chandra does not want to become a sacrifice to UGIN, but Sarkin no care about what Chandra wants. Sarkin wants her to die for UGIN and he's gonna make it happen. So he transforms into a dragon and attacks Chandra to offer her to the voices guiding him. Chandra, of course, tries to respond the way she always does with a big boom of fire, but her magic doesn't cooperate the way that she wants to. It's unfocused, still unreliable, and for a moment, it feels like she's just completely outmatched. And then, right on cue, Jace Beleren shows up. Now, Jace doesn't overpower Sarkin, he doesn't take control of the situation. What he does instead is push Chandra to think differently. And he implores her to use the Shadow Wizard invisible fire that's been inside the scroll that he's been having. So Chandra now starts ripping ghost fire, and that turns out works real wonders. Sarkin goes down, and in true Chandra fashion, Jace, who suggested the idea, gets caught in the blast as well. Now, to be real with you, for a moment there, she just considers leaving him there, which honestly wouldn't be completely out of character, I guess, but in the end, she doesn't. She wakes him up, and she then moves on, but something a little bit funky was actually happening behind the scenes. Monk Leader Supreme. So, after all of these silly events, Chandra heads on back to the Carol Keep, but this isn't a peaceful homecoming. Apparently, elections are on the way, and we all know that's a rough time to be in any country or plane or whatever, no connection to the real world. The former abbot, Serenok, has died, and suddenly Chandra, who once rejected everything the monastery stood for, is being asked to take his place. Now, as you might have come to realize, she's been always a little bit, let's say, rough around the edges and not always lining up with Jaya Ballard's teachings, but admittedly, the request stuck hard, and before she can even fully process what that would mean, Jace and Gideon show up? What the hell are you guys doing here? What? Turns out, Zendikar is being invaded by giant space, eldritch horror monsters known as the Eldrazi, which you can actually learn about in this video here, but after you finish watching this one, I hope. And it's sort of the aftermath, right, of their battle in the Eye of UGIN. Turns out that everything that happened there was orchestrated by a mysterious, powerful force. Those whispers that Sarkin was talking about. And essentially what happened was that when Chandra used the ghost fire of UGIN, the true purpose of the Eye of UGIN was revealed. It was a magical prison that could be only opened by the ghost fire and 3 planeswalkers being present in its chambers. So the dynamic duo of Gideon and Jace begged her to please come and help, and she promptly said, nah. And they just left, but still told her where to find them if ever she had a change of heart. She had a change of heart. And so Chandra headed to the Sea Gate on Zendikar, and things were, how do we put this, not very bueno. The attempt of all the forces of Zendikar made to contain the Eldrazi Titan Ulamog had failed, and in the aftermath, another Titan, Kozilek, had fully emerged as well. Whatever fragile sense of control had existed on Zendikar, and it wasn't much, had now completely gone, and apparently there was also a big scary demon planeswalker, Obnixilis, there as well. Now, Chandra had to find Gideon and Jace, and she realized that they were duking it out with Obnix, the Demon Supreme, so Big C, the Flame Goddess, tracks down Obnixilis, who has now captured Gideon Jura, Jace Beleren, and Nissa, and she does what she does best, casting a fireball at 6th level. But it doesn't fully work. Maybe it's because demons have a natural fire resistance, I don't know, but she needed help? Oh no. But luckily, everyone else, especially that really cute girl she's been checking out, Nissa, is really good at teamwork. Alone, they were completely outmatched, but together, they thrived. How anime. And it was right then and there that they made an oath to each other to defend what was right, and Chandra herself uttered the words that mattered most. Something instilled in her as a child, something kindled by Jaya Ballard's teaching. Her oath was very simple: if it means that people can live in freedom, yeah, I'll keep watch. And in that moment, the Gatewatch was finally formed. All that was left to do was, just save all of Zendikar, and the plan was not really simple either. I dare say it's ambitious to say the least, but god damn it, those badasses pulled it off. Here's what happened. Using Zendikar's ley lines, which you can play for free if you have them in your opening hand, how nice, they anchored both Ulamog and Kozilek to the plane, forcing their full essence and being into a single area of space so they could actually be fully destroyed. Gideon holds the line and Chandra supports from the backline. But once the Titans are anchored, everything starts to completely fall apart. Their presence begins to consume Zendikar itself, threatening to turn the entire plane into an extension of them. So they needed to go bigger, harder, even crazier. Working with Nissa, their powers could be truly devastating. Turns out that the nature magic that Nissa harnessed was actually pretty perfect tinder for Chandra's flame, so Nissa focused the ley lines on the Titans, and Chandra channeled her fire through the ley lines of Zendikar itself. And it works, but it nearly destroys her. Chandra stays behind on Zendikar afterwards because she has to. She's a sleepy girl. That kind of power, that kind of output, it really takes everything out of her, but luckily, she has some good company. The Flames of Darkness, EMRAKUL. We next see our bombastic flamey hero in the story head to the land of darkness and gothic horror, Instrat. Apparently there had been a third Eldrazi Titan, one that had been led to Instrat through some shady means, not relevant to Chandra herself, but again, I get into it in the Eldrazi video. During the final battle on Thraben, the Gatewatch is ready to take down the lurking chaos that is Mama EMRAKUL. The team tries to pretty much repeat what has worked before, but this time they had some extra help from, Tamio, which was actually pretty clutch. Anchor the threat, use the ley lines, and burn it out. Clean, simple, proven, except it doesn't work this time. Nissa, despite her best efforts, really struggles to connect with Instrat's ley lines, not to mention the love of my life EMRAKUL isn't something you can just pin down like those other two Titans. Trust me, I've tried. Turns out she's already inside the plane, twisting it, controlling it, reshaping everything around her. That's why all the evil creatures on the plane become evil Eldrazi creatures. EMRAKUL does that sort of stuff. It's hot, I know, but she also messes with your mind. Chandra gets caught in this psychic fury, and EMRAKUL's psychic influence brought her straight back to the worst moment of her life, Avishkar. The fire, her family, her spark igniting in the middle of all of it, she was forced to relive it all. And it's only with the unexpected arrival of yet another goth dommy mommy, Liliana Vess, that the Gatewatch can even manage to hold the line here. They could not win, so they needed to at least tie. Instead of destroying EMRAKUL, they moved to now containing her. Chandra fights alongside Gideon Jura, holding back the tide, buying time for a sealing ritual, which eventually, through a convenient deus ex machina, Tamio manages to seal EMRAKUL away in the moon. Surely that's not too shady, right? Home sweet home. After everything that happened on Instrat, the Gatewatch finally has a moment to breathe. They all buy studio apartments, chilling on the plane of Ravnica, except for the newest member, Liliana, who buys a mansion instead. Good girl, I get it. Go get that real estate. But Chandra is not allowed to rest because the next plane in need is home. Avishkar is in a lot of trouble. A Vidalcan planeswalker arrives with news from her home plane asking for help protecting the Inventor's Fair, and Chandra does not really take it too well, because he was not just some Vidalcan planeswalker, he was Dovin Ba'an, Minister of Inspection of the Consulate. You know, the governing body of Avishkar that slaughtered Chandra's entire family. So Chandra promptly stormed out of that meeting. At first she tries to ground herself with Nissa Ravain, but that doesn't quite work. Instead, she ends up going back with Liliana Vess, which is like a very different kind of emotional support system to Nissa. Lily is actually like a fun big sister figure to Chandra at this point. I highly recommend reading Homesick on the Magic website. The dialogue and little moments they have while getting dressed and exploring Jace's condo are actually really fun and amusing, and it's like, you know, as a fan of fantasy, I really like the little slice of life world building moments in between that I think are really nice. Lily basically suggests that they go to Avishkar themselves and, you know, check things out. And back in Jirapur on Avishkar, things immediately spiral. While searching for the renegades, Chandra stumbles across a mosaic of her father. Sick, wonder what that's all about. But before she can even process that, the situation escalates. Ether disruptions, consulate activity, and at the center of it all, a figure known as the Renegade Prime, who I just learned is not Optimus in a rebellious phase. It's actually Pia Nalaar, Chandra's mom, who is just immediately taken again by the consulate. Now, that moment, I gotta say, as confusing as it was, kind of hit me pretty hard. Like, Chandra has spent years carrying the guilt of losing her family, thinking it's her fault they got killed, and now she's suddenly faced with the possibility that not all of that loss was permanent, only to have it ripped away from her right again. Honestly, it's pretty soul-crushing in the story, but luckily there is still some hope. Liliana pulls Chandra back to her senses before she can throw herself into a losing fight, and alongside Nissa, who has very swiftly and wisely chased after Lily and Chandra, they gather with the renegades. Amongst them is a life crafter, Ovia Pashiri, an old friend of the Nalaar family, who promises that they'll get Pia back. Their search leads them deep beneath the city into a prison known as, and I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, but here is, you know, how it's spelled, De Hund? De Hund? I don't know. I'm German, maybe it's just Die Hund. Could be anything. Anyways, this is the place where Pia is being held by the consulate. And in a very twisted, sick, and low-key, very metal turn of fate, Baral, the man who slaughtered Chandra's family, who secretly has anti-fire magic, traps the gals in a deadlock prison designed to turn Chandra's own fire against her, suffocating them while poisoning the air. You know Baral, you've probably played against him before, and if not, and you're playing him yourself, please reconsider your life choices. For the first time in quite a while, Chandra can't just brute force her way out of this, and instead of breaking, she does something weird. She reflects. She talks about the Gatewatch, not as allies, but as family, something she didn't even think she'd ever have again in her life, and in that moment, she makes a choice. She tells Nissa to leave to survive because Chandra is now ready to stay behind if she has to. She really likes Nissa and is constantly looking for her, enjoying her company, and enjoys every single minute they share together. Nissa doesn't need to die today, and luckily, she doesn't have to. Because from the top ropes, roaring in like a beast, a Johnny Goldmane arrives, breaks them out, and the full Gatewatch converges on Avishkar. And from there, everything accelerates. At the Inventor's Fair, a really good land by the way, Chandra watches as her mother is paraded out like a prize and forced into conflict, while Tezzeret, a very evil man at the center of all the drama who also played with my girl, the Wanderer, at the center of all of this, right, taunts Chandra and reminds her that this is the same place she was once sentenced to die as well. Now, when the rest of the Gatewatch intervenes, Tezzeret escapes, revealing the real plan because the fair was just a distraction to confiscate inventions and capture their creators so that he could create a device that crosses planes, the planar bridge. So, to mess all of those plans up, Chandra now joins the Renegades, fighting alongside Pia and their allies against the Consulate. Gideon Jura tries to pull her back, reminding her that not everyone she's fighting is evil, but for Chandra, for I think understandable reasons, that's a little bit hard to accept. To her, the Consulate is the problem. Still, she tries, trusting Beef Slap's wisdom. And the final push comes at the Ether Spire, where Tezzeret has constructed the planar bridge. The plan here is to destroy it using a specialized device, but that doesn't work. Too easy. Instead, Chandra becomes a bomb, channeling her fire directly into the device. But in a very nice full circle moment, I think, Gideon shields her from the blast, and together they manage to destroy the portal. And in the aftermath, Avishgar finally changes. The Consulate is reformed, Baral is imprisoned, Pia becomes the leader in the new system, and for the first time since her spark ignited, Chandra doesn't leave a home behind in flames. Yay. Bolas is scary. Amonkhet is up next on the menu as the Gatewatch has learned that the real center of everything here, Sarkin and the Eye of UGIN, the Eldrazi, Avishgar, Tezzeret, it all comes back to one man, or I guess technically one elder dragon. Nicol Bolas. They arrive on the Egyptian-themed plane of Amonkhet, expecting a big fight, but instead they walk straight into Nicol Bolas's endgame. Waiting for them is an army of Eternals, perfectly trained warriors turned into undead killing machines. Gods are corrupt. Religion itself on the plane now centers all around Nikki B, God P, and when Chandra and her pals confront Bolas, it's not even close, man. They're overwhelmed, outmatched, and completely dismantled. Chandra, who just helped incinerate Eldrazi titans, is completely outclassed, and so she's forced to run away, just like her big sister Lily did, leaving them all to die. And so, as you can imagine, when she reunites with the team on Dominaria, everything feels, well, very different. The confidence is gone, the unity is shaken. Chandra questions Liliana Vess's loyalty, wondering if the Gatewatch was ever more than a means to an end for her. And to just kind of add insult to injury, Nissa was so shook up that she left too, and that really cut deep for Chandra. Nobody, literally nobody, was still together. But at this point in her story, Chandra doesn't give up. Nicol Bolas became the new man, and anti-establishment Chandra will take down the man. Or I guess, in this case, the Elder Dragon, right? So she seeks out Jaya Balar, the legendary pyromancer that the Carol Keep Monastery built their ideals around, only to discover something that just completely reframes her own past. Jaya isn't just some legendary pyromancer, she is Mother Luti, her mentor, the one who helped shape her control in the first place. And in case you're wondering, yeah, that means that Mother Luti was low-key just chilling in her own religion as a monk to see just, kinda how things went around the religion that she started, undercover. Weird and kind of funny, low-key. Oh, also somewhere along the lines, she then met Karn and Multani. She helped them out a little bit, which ultimately is what persuaded Jaya to help in the Gatewatch's quest to kill Belzenlock, a demon, one of Liliana's demons, and what apparently was necessary to eventually defeat Bolas. Then, Chandra infiltrated the Belzenlock stronghold to find the Black Blade, the only weapon strong enough to kill the demon, and Gideon uses it to slay him, freeing Liliana from some demon pact she made as a young witch. Now, that was supposed to help, but it kind of just for the moment made things a lot worse, since now Liliana was forced to work for the real contract holder, Bolas himself. The Inferno of the War of the Spark. Alright, now it's time for some endgame here. Destroy Bolas, end his plan to consume all the planeswalkers, and, profit. So they head to Ravnica, his target, and plan to slay him with all their new allies. Instead, turns out, this was also once again a trap.
It's a trap!
Bolas activates the super powerful relic, the Immortal Sun, which seals the plane and locks every planeswalker in place, whom he had just happened to summon to Ravnica so he could gobble up everyone's sparks. Now it was a full-scale war against his Dread Horde, an army of Eternals led by Big Sis Lily, marching through the city alongside Devastation on a level that the Gatewatch, even with the Eldrazi, had never faced before. Chandra fights alongside countless others and has a very critical mission. She needs to shut down the Immortal Sun herself. So, with a bunch of help from some other planeswalkers, she moves to dismantle the device, trapping them all, which is being defended by Dovin Ba'an. So in a very fun and clever twist, Lavas, one of the planeswalkers helping Chandra, disguises himself as Chandra, mimicking her fire powers in a direct confrontation with Dovin Ba'an, and while he plays the distraction, the real Chandra slips past defenses and uses some super crazy ultra hot fire to disable the Immortal Sun, thus allowing the planeswalkers across Ravnica to finally escape. But the plan doesn't stop here. Now, Chandra's in charge, and after a bunch of the planeswalkers dip, she reactivates the sun, fitting thematically for the pyromancer to wield the sun, and thus, she now traps Bolas. Uno reverse card, back to you. Then Gideon sacrifices himself to save Lily, taking on the curse that was meant to kill her so that she could finally be free and, order could be restored. It's a whole thing I go over in my Gideon video or in my Lily video. You can check out either of them. But Chandra doesn't see it that way at first. From her perspective, Liliana is responsible. Her burdens killed Beef Slap, and for a moment, she was ready to just burn her down right then and there. I don't know if she could, maybe, because all of her sisters were now dead to her. But luckily, Blue Guy Jace stepped in, explaining the truth in order to stop her. Now, when the battle finally ends, it doesn't really feel like victory. It feels like everything, went up in flames, really. Chandra survives, the Gatewatch survives, but Gideon is gone, and that absence hits harder than she actually expected it. She admits, quietly but honestly, that she actually loved him. More than just a teammate, more than just family. Turns out she was actually hot for Giddy. Living with these demons. Chandra goes and attends Gideon's memorial on Theros, and it doesn't really feel like closure, and to her, it feels like everything collapsing at once. Gideon is gone, and before she can even process that loss, Lily is gone too, or at least that's what she believes. Jace and Chandra are kept in the dark on what will happen to Lily due to their personal relationships. Somewhere in here, she also actually confesses to Nissa that she loves her too, and that doesn't really settle in yet. But Chandra's flames of rage are still burning, and as a result, she decides to now go hunt down Dovin Ba'an, chasing one of the last threats left from the war. When she finally finds him alongside Raska, the fight is fast, messy, and very personal. In the end, Chandra believes that she's the one who kills him. For just a brief moment, it really feels like progress, like maybe she's finally doing something right for a change, but it's a little bit too late because Tybalt, a half-devil, half-man planeswalker who feeds on guilt, decides to just start tormenting her right then and there. They clash several times, and he keeps feeding on the pain, the guilt, the anger that she still hasn't dealt with here. He doesn't want to beat her quickly to begin with. He wants her to just spiral, to lose control, to become exactly the type of destructive force that she's been afraid of ever since Avishkar. And for a while, it actually works. Until Chandra has a big revelation and realizes that Tybalt isn't her enemy in the way that Bolas was. He's a reflection of everything that she hasn't faced. You know, kind of the part of her that believes that she's the problem and she's the reason people get hurt. So instead of running again, she stops. She goes back to Amonkhet, to the place where everything started falling apart, and she confronts it. Not the enemies, not the battlefield, the feeling, the failure, the grief, the guilt that she's been carrying since Gideon fell and Liliana just vanished. In a very thematic parallel to her origins with the Purifying Flame, she once again comes to terms with the guilt and kicks Tybalt's ass as a result pretty easily. Super hot wedding crasher. Not too long after finding her footing once again, Chandra gets pulled back into yet another crisis, this time back on good old Instrat. And if the last time she was here was all about cosmic horror, this time it's something slower, darker, a world slipping out of balance. Arlen Court arrives on Ravnica asking for help, bringing news of eternal night slowly creeping across Instrat. So Chandra joins Teferi and Kaya, and together they head back to Gothic Horror Central. This time not to fight a very attractive Eldrazi, but to fix something much more fragile, the natural order itself. And their search leads them into Thraben, which is not doing great. The city is in ruins, crawling with undead remnants of the very forces that once helped save it, and if that all wasn't enough yet, the Eternal Night is making all the werewolves really messed up. Meaning that we gotta save the dogs and bring the morning. So, for contrived plot reasons and following a trail of clues, they track an object known as the Moonsilver Key that literally unlocks the daylight in a big ritual, eventually learning it's in the hands of Soren Markov, an uber-powerful, very old OG vampire planeswalker, basically. And this may or may not come as a surprise to you, but he's not exactly eager to just hand over the key. Tensions spike, blades are drawn, and it takes the intervention of Sigarda, my girl, who, Sigarda's 8, what a great card, to flash in a Colossus Hammer and attach it to whatever creature is just attacking. Anyways, Sigarda's 8 helps prevent things from escalating even further, and while she holds back Soren, the team secures the key and escapes. At the Celestis ritual site, as the ritual to restore balance begins, the big bad villain Tovolar launches a full assault. Teferi literally slows time itself to delay the werewolf's transformation, buying some precious moments, while Chandra unleashes controlled waves of fire to keep the attackers at bay. They win. For a little bit, and then Olivia Voldaren, a hot vampire, arrives, steals the key, and plunges Instrat fully into Eternal Night. So, naturally, they have to go and crash a wedding. Now teaming up with Soren, the group storms the Voldaren estate during Olivia's ceremony to Edgar Markov, and once the fight breaks out, everything moves real fast. One might say they have ended the festivities, And through it all, there's a quieter shift happening now, right? Chandra has a little hot fling with Adeline, a holy warrior of Avacyn, the former Archangel of Instrat. It's kinda subtle at first, they share fights, mutual trust, and moments in the middle of chaos. You could say it was a slow burn. But by the time the battle ends, Olivia is defeated, the ritual is restored, and those two little lovebirds shared a warm embrace through the night under a willow tree. How romantic. The flames that burn Phyrexia. At this point in the story, deep in the crevices and icky cracks of the plot, whispers of a new, bigger threat began to spread. The new Phyrexians were starting to invade the multiverse. Chandra is once again pulled right in the center of it because really, it's her and Jace, those two are the real protagonists of Magic, and so they need to recruit a lot of help since this is a threat that rivals Bolas' power, so naturally her first stop is Zendikar, home of Nissa Ravane. Now, the conversation isn't super easy. As you know, there's some history there, a lot of weird distance, some flings in the middle, but when it matters, Nissa agrees. Whatever happened between them, this was admittedly a lot bigger. Together, they actually head to Dominaria, where the weight of what's coming really starts to now settle in. It's right then that she learns that her mentor, the great pyromancer who took her in, Jaya Ballard, has now passed. She grieves for a moment, but then gets right back into defending what's right. After all, that's what Jaya would have wanted. Quickly, she then made one last pit stop back to Avishkar. She just wanted to see her mom in a moment in case things went wrong. Nothing wrong with that, I think, because things immediately did go wrong. When the strike team heads into New Phyrexia, Chandra isn't amongst them. Instead, she waits on Dominaria with Ren, Vivian Reed, and Liliana Vess holding onto the clearly fragile hope that things will somehow work out. Spoiler alert, they don't. Jace and Nissa have fallen, and they weren't just killed, they were completed, turned into living machines to fight under the vicious but oddly attractive Queen of Phyrexia, Alice Norn. For Chandra, that's the breaking point. And that's when Chandra and Ren, two baddies with fire powers, decide they're just gonna end it all. Ren steps forward with a plan. Since she's able to merge with trees, you can learn all about that in the Ren video we just made, she was going to merge with Realmbreaker itself, the Phyrexian invasion tree, and use it to turn the tide. Sick plan? Let's get after it. On New Phyrexia, everything goes wrong immediately. God damn it, why does this always happen? They're intercepted by a completed Nissa who tears Ren's companion, Seven, apart without any hesitation. That's definitely a messed up sight since Nissa's like super team tree normally. Poor Chandra was an absolute mess. Seeing Nissa like this was just a reality-shattering moment. And genuinely, all was lost. Out of the blind eternities themselves, Elspeth Tyrell returns, transformed, ascended, an archangel of badassery. Now this gave Chandra and some others a window to help Ren again, and they got her to Realmbreaker while everything was collapsing around them. But through some big universal moving shenanigans, the plan works, and New Phyrexia is now locked away in a weird subspace pocket of time, and in the aftermath, Nissa is restored. Almost. She's lost her spark and is definitely a little bit messed up from all the I'm a machine type of stuff that was going on. So at last, Chandra has her real shot with Nissa. She stays with Nissa and their relationship flourishes. For the first time ever, Chandra doesn't rush back into the next fight. She just gets some lovin' on. Dude, Chandra is like, dude, she's getting after it. Damn, didn't realize that. Chandra Nalaar, demon on wheels. But obviously, she still knows that Nissa is, struggling a little bit after the whole losing her spark thing. That sort of stuff weighs a little bit on someone. But thanks to Realmbreaker, a new way of crossing the multiverse has now suddenly opened up. The Omen Paths, and apparently her home plane of Avishkar is hosting a multiversal race for the second time, and that's how Chandra got involved with the Girapur Grand Prix. Now you probably know that Aetherspark isn't that long ago, and it's kind of interesting actually learning some of the lore behind it. Basically, it's an interplanar death-defying circuit stretching across worlds like Amonkhet and beyond, high speed, high risk, and packed with competitors from across the multiverse, all chasing a single, admittedly very important prize, the Aetherspark, an artificial spark that grants its wielder the ability to planeswalk. And Chandra wants it for Nissa Ravane. That's love, brother! In a move that surprises pretty much everyone, Chandra doesn't join her mother's team. Instead, she signs up with the reigning champions, the Cloudspire Racing team, sending shockwaves through Avishkar. And then she gets third place, totally losing to the team from Amonkhet. That's kind of funny, honestly, you have to admit. The Omen Paths are pretty sick though, and their creation is even more interesting. So if you want to learn all about those and the other flaming woman who made them, you should check out this video here on Ren, because she low-key might be the cooler pyromancer, but hey, you be the judge of that. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and yeah, if you are watching this video and it's maybe not the first, but the second, third, fourth video of the channel, and you haven't subscribed yet, that would be really appreciated, makes a big difference. Otherwise, yeah, I'll see you in the next video.